and Femi OK. On today's episode of The Stream, a serious discussion about beauty pageants in India as India gets ready to host Miss World 2023 later this year. In the history of Miss World, India has won 6 times. Here's a reminder of who walked away with the crown in 2000.
And Miss World 2000 is Miss India.
So this is remarkable. This is the 5th time India has won Miss World. Of course, we met Richard Before, who's the current reigning champion. She'll hand over the crown to the gorgeous, beautiful Pujana Chopra, 18 years old. She's our student. She loves singing gospel. She'll be praising the Lord tonight as she receives the crown for the world's most beautiful woman.
Oh, isn't she lovely? All right, so the spectacle, the beauty, the business, the impact of beauty pageants on women and also men in India. That is what we're talking about. Our YouTube comment section is live. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say on this topic. With us to talk about beauty pageants in India, in Mumbai, we have Paramita Vora, a filmmaker and writer. In the US state of Indiana, Radhika Paramisaran, a professor of India, culture and gender studies at the University of Indiana. And in Mumbai, Anna Bredamaya, a former supermodel from India. Ladies, it's so good to have you. What I didn't mention at the very beginning of this show was that this is the 2nd time India will host Miss World. Back in 1996, didn't go too well. Radhika, if you could sum up the 1996 hosting of Miss World in India, what would you say happened?
I would say it was a period of intense controversy. I'm sure my panelists remember this. It was held in Bangalore. The Vidhana Sauda was the place where the pageant was held. It had state support, but there were huge protests. And the streets were filled with protesters and strikes. And if I remember correctly, the swimsuit section had to be postponed. Had to be put somewhere else.
Relocated.
Right?
Radhika, relocated outside of India.
Exactly. Seychelles Island.
Yes.
And there were protests from the left, from the right. And so I remember it being a huge period of turmoil, while at the same time, there were also people who supported the pageant, but their voices were much more muted. And so I remember it just being, I was in the US at the time, just a few years after I arrived here, and lots of questions from people here, asking me, why this? Why so much protest? Why are people so angry about this pageant coming? So yes, for it to come back, so many years later, it will be interesting to see what will happen this time.
Which is so fascinating, Anna, because just before Miss World was hosted in India for the first time, Miss World and Miss Universe were both from India. India was killing it in the beauty stakes. So where's the disconnect between hosting it and winning it?
I think there are positives and negatives to everything, and always 2 sides to a coin. And it's just unfortunate that it was being seen in a different light then. But I'm sure the contest has evolved, like fashion shows also have evolved, where they've become a lot more inclusive today. So I'm sure we'll get a much better response now.
Paramita, I'm just looking at how the Miss World organisation, I'm just going to read this on my laptop. Nobody look, because my writing's messy. All right, how the Miss World organisation are talking about going to India this time. They chose India as the host country as it recognised, quote here, the nation's rich cultural heritage, its commitment to promoting diversity and its passion for empowering women. Paramita, do you think they forgot 1996, or has India completely changed?
I think India has changed, and I agree that I agree with Anna that I don't think that this time round there will be protests like the last time. I think what is interesting is that the last time you had people from very different kinds of political persuasions all part of the same protest. You had the right wing, you had leftist organizations, and you had feminist organizations all protesting. I think the feminists and women have definitely evolved to think very differently about these things. I'm not so sure about the right wing. But, you know, I do see that the way that the Miss World organization is talking about it is very much in keeping with the larger agenda also of the government to want to promote India as this place of inclusion and progress and empowerment, which is a little bit in contrast with some of the things that are happening locally. So yes, I don't think that we'll see that kind of protest as we saw last time, because it is dovetailing, I think, with a certain larger agenda as well. Other than the fact that people accept beauty pageants as a natural part of life. And I think that women, fashion, selfies, social media, all this has completely altered the way we think about these things.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paramita. I do think, you know, that the larger landscape of beauty culture, fashion, you know, there's been a huge generational shift with young women now, because there's also, to some extent, some of the critiques of the pageant that came from the right, were very much about body shaming, you know, a type of modesty that perhaps many feminists don't necessarily endorse, right? Nor do feminists endorse objectification. But I do think, you know, there is agency surrounding the female body that has changed for the, you know, for the good in India to some extent.
Radhika, will you explain what that means? Because, for instance, in 1996, as we said, the swimsuit competition, which we're looking at right now, had to move outside of India. And also, it looks like the young ladies are covering themselves partially with wraps and covers and even jackets, so they're not fully showing off their body, their form. So what does that mean now in contemporary India for how women can be and be seen in public?
Yeah, I think to a large degree, right, the attitude towards women has been that women represent the family, women represent the community. You know, women's honor is a symbol, right, of the community and the family. And so immodest women challenge, you know, family honor, community honor. And so there's been a lot of shame and control, right, are exerted over women. And so I even, you know, I remember even as a young woman, right, the kinds of policing I experienced, very intense. Even if your family is a bit liberal, the community, right, pressures are very strong. So to some degree, there is something good about women feeling like if they want to, they can decide what parts of their body they want to show. They can decide what is modest or immodest, right? And if they're not doing it only to please men, there is something empowering about that that we cannot ignore. Right, and so
Radhika, I'm going to show you, in case you've missed them, some of Anna's pictures from her pageant days. Anna, goodness me, this is extraordinary. You're stunning. How did you do this? What year are we talking here? Is this, tell me.
Sorry, we're talking 1976 in Manila at the Miss Asia Quest. And it was at a time when being in the movies, being in modeling and beauty contests was not so accepted all around. But, you know, we kind of went out there, did the best we could, came back, placed, and life kind of went on. But one didn't really feel objectified or anything of the sort, you know. In fact, you felt empowered because you were representing your country. You were taking your culture out. There was a sisterhood among all the contestants where we learned from them as much as they learned from us. And I mean, it was a platform where we built our personalities and we felt that kind of confidence and came back and went full steam ahead.
I want to bring us up to... Yes, Anna, go ahead.
Sorry. It's a lot more empowering for the young ladies of today, because today most of the contests are more of a personality contest, and there's a lot of play. It's beauty with a purpose.
All right, and I'm so glad you said that, because I'm going to bring us up to date with Miss India World, Asina Shetty, who talks about Miss India World and why she's competing in it and why other people should compete in it. And Asina Shetty will be competing in Miss World later on this year. But have a look about how she frames the current pageant.
Femina Miss India has given us a powerful role model every year for the past 58 years. Women who are aspirational, inspirational, and most importantly, a beauty with a purpose. If you too want to be an inspiration to an entire generation of women who come after you, come, join the revolution called Miss India.
All right, that's a really interesting promo there. Anna, go ahead. What were you going to say very quickly?
Yes, so beauty with a purpose, and it's a platform now that's become such a strong platform for the contestants to reach out to people from all walks of life, people who have been marginalized, who don't get that chance to be out there, and to make a difference in their lives. So beauty contests are definitely
Beauty with a purpose. All right. So not just a branding idea, that there really is purpose there. Ladies, I'm going to ask you to tell us, with a show of hands, if you consider yourself to be a feminist. Hand up if you consider yes.
Oh, two hands.
To an extent.
Anna,
so quickly,
I either see your hand or I don't see your hand. I do not see your hand. All right, and I see two hands from Radhika. So here's the conversation that I know our audience will be thinking about. How can beauty pageants be feminist? Are they not a relic of the past? Paramita, thoughts?
Well, I think that, the idea of labeling something feminist or not feminist is kind of fruitless, because every cultural event has multiple meanings, right? And it's a different experience for the individual. And I think we can't deny that if there's a young woman who gets to travel the world, to earn a lot of money, to be appreciated for something that she has, as qualities that she has, there is going to be confidence, and there's a kind of cultural capital that is built up, right? Like it creates a new kind of work life for women, and it allows them to be rich and famous, which is quite an important part of expressing yourself in the world and being feminist. But on the other hand,
Paramita, can I quickly say something? But that, and in the past, it was always women from several cases from rather elite families, right? So now with beauty pageants, you do have, I sense that it's exactly what you're saying, but it's opened up to a larger group of women.
Yes, but at the same time, I don't think that we can forget that beauty pageants are not only about beauty, and I'm not sure, they are about purpose in a kind of restricted way. We should not forget that
it's more than just about beauty, but I'm surrounded by beauty pageant queens, and we're showing them on the air, and they are stunning. They're dead gorgeous. How can it not be?
No, it is about beauty, but it is about a very specific kind of beauty. So I don't think we should forget that, right? Like there is an autonomy that happens when you go out in the world and you work and you become appreciated. But it's a certain type of beauty.
All right, let me go. I'm going to go to Anna, but I'm going to go to Anna via Miss India Laura Dutta. Again, in the year 2000. It was a really, really productive year for India. It did amazing that year. So this is a comedian, in that normal Q&A section where you ask the tough question as a contender. And let's lean into the answer because it's very relevant. Have a look.
Here's your final question. Right now, there's a protest going on right outside here calling the Miss Universe pageant disrespectful of women. Convince them that they're wrong.
I think pageants like the Miss Universe pageant gives us young women a platform to foray into the fields that we want to and forge ahead, be it entrepreneurship, be it the armed forces, be it politics. It gives us a platform to voice our choices and opinions and makes us strong, independent that we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, India.
Anna, what would you add to Laura's thoughts there?
Absolutely spot on. And besides giving yourself a platform, giving you the platform, it gives you a platform to touch lives of people who have a disadvantage, of women who have a disadvantage and don't have a voice. You're able to give them a voice as well. So it's not only about self, but it's about helping and making that difference in society too today.
I don't think you can.
Paramita and then Radhika.
Yeah. I don't think we can forget that, it is a very limited kind of idea of beauty, and it is about a certain kind of femininity too.
Can you describe it? How would you describe a certain kind of beauty? Are we talking about in India, in the Indian context, fair-skinned, Western-looking, green eyes?
Yes, thin for sure, right? And very, very straight, like this very kind of a heterosexual world also that it represents. So I think it doesn't, in that sense, mirror the diversity of beauty, and nor does it necessarily mirror the diversity of purpose, right? So it is also very limited, a very specific kind of humanitarian work, but you can't be politically radical and be in a beauty pageant very easily. So I think that while we recognize that it creates, I mean, there's something radical for an individual to be able to be part of the space. And there is something that has happened for women in India, not only through beauty pageants, but a kind of complete shift in the representation of women's bodies, sexuality, claiming your own body, and also this divide that used to exist, you know, between pretty girls and smart girls. It's like smart girls are always dowdy and pretty girls are not smart. So that divide has kind of been erased to a great extent. And today, people claim both their beauty and their intelligence and their brightness in different ways. So I think while all of that has happened, we cannot forget that in an Indian context, the kind of person who is mostly in a beauty contest is an upper caste person. And it's not just any kind of beauty. It's one kind of beauty, and that one kind of beauty is linked to one kind of womanhood and one kind of femininity. It's not like everything and everybody. So
Sure.
I don't think we can ever forget that.
Okay, Radhika,
Yeah,
I'm going to come to you, but via Shivangi Sinha, who actually attempted to take part in a beauty pageant, and she has a story to tell about that. And then immediately off the back of her, please add your thoughts. Here we go.
Beauty pageants capitalize on women's insecurities. In fact, the standard of beauty propagated by pageants is not just aspirational, but unobtainable at large. Looking back a year ago when I participated in the pageant, it was because I wanted to be labeled beautiful. And while there is nothing wrong with it, I think it's time we take a step back and reevaluate how we define beauty. From getting Venus to hair extension and expensive skin treatment, women are constantly striving to look a certain way, to fit in.
Radhika, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, you know, building off of what Paramita said, right, I would say that the beauty pageant, you know, the stage, right, as we look at it, has certainly changed. It's become inclusive in so many different ways, you know, and I also think it's, you know, you have to look at beauty pageants not in isolation, but, you know, there's so much that has changed in India in terms of the fashion industry, in terms of the other parts of the beauty industry, the women's magazine industry, and changes happening in Bollywood as well, right? So beauty pageants are very much part of this tapestry, right? And so I think, you know, what Shivangi is pointing out is, yes, that, you know, yeah, not everyone, you know, can be Miss India. Certainly you know, there are restrictions on, as we already spoke about, right? Size, you know, the kinds of hair, the kinds of skin color, all of those, right, are still very much there. We have to recognize those constraints, certainly, but I also think we have to recognize that these are constraints that spread across various popular culture and media industries, right? So that, you know, you can't claim that beauty pageants you know, that's the only space that's restrictive. So how can we talk about, right, opening up, right, the opening up sort of the space of beauty to be far more inclusive has to be done, I think, beyond just beauty pageants, right? So
I think beauty is much more inclusive in other spaces. It's just not that in beauty pageants, but there is inclusive beauty in other spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I think that you do see the disconnect between the beauty pageant beauty and
Let me leave some space for Anna. Anna, I want you to just respond very quickly to some of our viewers who are watching on YouTube. One of them says, Indian values are being lost. Immediate reaction to that.
Not at all. It's up to the individual. I mean, it's like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So values, you keep your values intact. It's each one's perspective on that. I certainly don't think so. I didn't compromise on any of my values when I represented India at international contests. So I don't see where that comes from. I mean, we value each other. Beauty is a God-given asset. And if you decide that you want to show it off, you should be allowed to.
Marie says, I have known, this is on YouTube, thanks Marie for watching, I've known pageant women who have done pageants their entire life. Reaching this point brings so much more than beauty, intelligence world involvement and outreach, along with continuing to give back. Anna, what I find fascinating is about Miss World 2023. It is based on philanthropy, charities that the young women will be bringing, wanting to promote, giving them an opportunity to do so. Is that because beauty pageants, they have to change? They have to be more contemporary. It can't be just scoring them in their swimsuits.
Yes, absolutely. And the template, from the original template, it has moved and it has shifted. It has shifted to include and mean a lot more. We need more substance in the world. I mean, it's just not, you cannot stick to that narrow lane. And everybody realizes it. Like I said, even fashion shows today have become all inclusive, and beauty contests are on their way there too, I'm sure.
What we
What
we haven't talked about is really the business of beauty in India. It's exploded. There's ways to make you look lighter and brighter, fair and lovely, your hair to look gorgeous. Isn't this all isn't a Miss World competition in India playing into that, asking women to spend more money on themselves? Just a thought, Radhika.
Yeah, I have to say yes. And this is why the 1996 Miss World pageant was interesting too, because it occurred right after the Indian economy changed quite rapidly, right? We began to have economic liberalization, India opening up to foreign companies. So beauty pageants, and other sorts of, beauty culture go hand in hand with beauty as a business. So you cannot divorce, right, one from the other. The one quick thing I'll also add to this is that the beauty pageant, to some degree, also builds on the vestiges of aristocracy, right? You have a beauty queen to some degree, noblesse oblige, going out and saving the masses. So we have to think about that model as well, right? So backed up by the beauty business, you have somebody who's been crowned queen. It's not unlike what Princess Diana did. It's not unlike what Queen Elizabeth does, right? So there is a model of noblesse oblige, right, built in that can be quite hierarchical. So that is something to think about as well.
I think another thing that did happen, to build on what Radhika was saying about the tapestry of popular culture, is that, with beauty pageants and Miss Worlds from India really opened up the Indian market to cosmetics companies and to fashion business. So yes, it is a question of the market, why a contest like Miss World happens or beauty pageants happen. And through those routes, actually, you have women who win in beauty pageants entering cinema, entering television, and also changing the way we thought about beauty in India, right? So earlier, a movie star could be more voluptuous. It's not that everybody looked the way they didn't look like supermodels in movies. And there was a distinction between the kind of beauty you saw in an advertisement and the kind of beauty you saw in popular cinema. So you had a kind of diversity on the Indian screen, relative, I'm not saying absolute, but then there's a kind of homogenization that has occurred. And so to the point about, is it not impacting eating disorders? Is it not meaning that people are spending a lot of money on cosmetic procedures as a matter of course today? Of course it is. And I think that's the thing, that on balance, it's impossible to say, you can't really say it's a good or a bad thing, but it has multiple impacts in a society, some of which are very freeing and liberating, and some of which are actually very constricting.
I love that in this conversation, Paramita, Radhika and Anna, you have demonstrated that it's not either or. It's not let's get rid of the beauty pageants. It's not empowering women. And also it's too much of a business angle, and it's using women as products. It's very complicated and very layered. I am going to be watching with interest to see what happens with Miss World 2023 being held in India towards the end of this year. One of the original opponents of the 1996 Miss World competition was the BJP, who are now in power in India. So how fascinating is that? What will happen in November or December? Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.